Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to crochet a headband. I'm making this video primarily for Alex. Hello Alex! I'm going to be using a size 8mm crochet hook and very chunky yarn, but I would recommend using double knitting and about a size 4 crochet hook, depending on how tight you crochet. But if you've got multiple hooks, you could play around and see which you like the best. So this is a headband to help with keeping your fringe out of the way if it's grown a bit long during this isolation and social distancing time. So it's going to be made in one piece. That means we don't sew any pieces together. We're not going to be doing rows and then building up this way. We're going to be doing one long piece like that and then joining it together. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is make a slip knot, and don't pull it too tight. Just a nice loose one. Actually, I'm going to do that again and leave more of a tail. Then hook in. Now this knot we're going to count as one chain, sorry. So now we're going to chain 7, so we'll have 8 chain in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and my yarn is caught, so bear with me. That's better. So if we count them, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the knot makes 8. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to take our hook and we're going to put it into the second chain from the hook. So let me just remove my hook for a moment to explain. Imagine my hook is through this one, so that one doesn't count. And then we've got a hole here and a hole here. So this is 1 and this is 2. So we're going to go through that 2. So with the hook on, 1, 2. In there, yarn around the hook, yarn around the hook, and through. I forgot to explain what I was doing there, so we'll do it again. Each time you make a new stitch, you work in the next hole along. For example, here I have the next hole along marked as number 3. Hook in, yarn around the hook, pull it back through the loop, yarn around the hook, pull it back through both loops. Okay, and again. In, round, through, round, through both. In, round, through, round, through both. So we're just working our way back along this chain. So you can still see your chain. Here's the next one. In, round, back through, round, through 2. Here's the next one. In, round, back through, round, through 2. So in, yarn over hook, round hook, back through, yarn round hook, through 2. And then once more, this is the knot, so this bit's a little bit harder to see where to go, but this, where the tail comes through, you can see that the tail follows a route through there. follow the tail back, and it's just where it joins the other piece of yarn there. So into the hole. It's always a little bit tighter than the others. Yarn around hook, back through, yarn around hook, through 2, and you've done your first row. Now at the end of this row it's good to check that you've still got enough stitches. So each time you see, a little V shape, that's 1 stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We don't count the one on the hook. So when you're making this, do the 8 and just see how wide that gets. This is very wide because it's very thick yarn and a large hook. You will have to make yours with whatever size yarn you're using and whatever hook you're using, and just see if that's as wide as you would want the headband to be. So imagine that on your forehead or on your head, and just see if that's wide enough. We're going to continue in a row this way, and then when we've made a row we'll join back to the beginning. So when you've decided how many stitches you need, do your first row, make sure you've still got all the stitches, and then write it down so that every now and then you can check that you've still got the right number of stitches. So row 2, we're going to chain, before we turn we're going to chain 1 like that, and now we're going to twist and flip our work around, and then we're going to start from the second loop from the hook. So there's number 1, there's number 2. Now this time we're not going to go through them from the front. We're going to do what's called working in the back loop only. So when you look at it and you can see these little V shapes, we want the V that's the part of the V that's furthest away from you, so that way. So there's number 1, there's number 2. So you tip your work up and you look and you think, right, there's the V that I need to go into. So I'm going to go into the V and out through the back loop. Grab the yarn, round the hook, back through, round the hook, through 2. And you've started your second row. So take your hook, find the next V, which is here, into the V, and we're doing back loop only, so through the back. Yarn around hook, back through, round the hook, through 2. And you continue doing this all the way to the end. So here's the next little V, through the back loop, round the hook, back through the loop, round the hook, through 2. Through the back loop, round the hook, back through the loop, round the hook, back through 2. Okay, let me do that again very slowly. Here's the V. Take the hook into the back part of the V, yarn around hook, pull it back through the V, yarn around hook, and then through the 2 loops. Again, find the V, through the back loop, yarn around hook, back through the V, yarn around hook, and through 2. Find the V, into the back loop, yarn around hook, back through the V, yarn around hook, through both. And then the last one, find the V, into the back loop, yarn round hook, back through the V, yarn round hook, and then pull that through the 2 that were on the hook. And now you've done your second row. When you've done your second row, have a little look. Hopefully you'll be able to see lots of these little ridges on the front. Those are the loops that you didn't go through, so those are the front loops standing proud. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when we turn it round and do that again, they'll stand proud on the other side. And then we do it again and again, and it makes like a ribbed effect. And it also means that the fabric will then be stretchy. So we'll do that again. Before we turn, we chain 1, flip the work over, second from the hook into the V and through the back loop of the second from the hook, round the hook, pull back through the V, round the hook, pull through 2, find the next V, into the V, through the back loop, yarn round hook, back through the V, yarn round hook, through 2. And you just carry on doing this all the way along. Now when you've done say 3 rows or maybe 4 rows, you might want to count your stitches again and see how many you've got. When I do this, what I do, I take my hook and I pull it quite far so that that final loop can't come undone, and also so that I don't accidentally count this, because it doesn't count. So I've pulled that long and it's out of the way. If you turn it this way, it's easier to see all the V's. 1 V, 2 V's, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I still have all my stitches. So then I put my hook back in here, and then I just pull on the working yarn and I'm back where I was before I took my hook out. Ready to chain 1 and then turn the work, and yes, carry on, you guessed it. So you continue to do that, and I'll meet you when you've made it so that this fits all the way around your head. Okay, so I've made sure that this fits all the way around my head, and when you measure it, you want it to stretch a little bit so that it fits. Not so much that it goes see-through and you just end up with a bunch of holes on your head. You don't want it too tight, but you need it tight enough that it actually contracts a little bit and grips your head a little bit. If it's too loose, it will just pop off, and so you need it a little bit snug. Then what I'm going to do, we're going to join the ends. So if you can get your piece of work so that you've got on your knee or table, whatever you're working on, you have first the piece that's got where we started, that's got the tail, and then fold it over and have the piece that's got the working yarn. Now when you make this strip, you need to end with a row that leaves your working yarn on the opposite side to your tail when you fold it in half. Can you see? So it's folded in half, and my tail is on the left and my working yarn is on the right. So let's have a little look at the construction here. Here we have, on the one with the working yarn, we have a furrow here and a ridge here. So we need this to be a ridge, and to make it a ridge we work in the back loop. So when we're joining it to this one, if you now fold this one towards you, we've got a furrow here and a ridge here. So we're going to join the two ridges together. So hold the back piece flat against the front piece, and now I'm going to call the piece that's got the tail the back piece, and the piece with the working yarn is going to be the front piece. So at the end of the last row, we're not chaining one, okay? We're not going to chain one to start this row, which means when you look at it, normally when you've chained one, you then count 2 from the hook. But because we haven't chained one, we're going to count 1 from the hook. Now normally that would mean that your stitch would come undone, but because we're joining 2 pieces together, your stitch shouldn't come undone. So counting from the tail on the back piece, we're going to count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to make that loop proud. We're going to make it obvious where it is. And then pop it down. Don't think about it for a minute. Now we're going to count on the first one, on the front one, and make sure we've still got 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Excellent. So now hold the back piece against the front piece again and match up the stitch you made clear, visible, and the number 8 on the front. And then you're going to put your yarn all the way around the back here and then hold it like you would normally. So hold my yarn here at the back. So I've got my hook and I'm going to go through the back loop only of the first stitch from the hook. And be careful not to push that stitch through. So keep that stitch from going back through, because it wants to go back through, but just leave it, don't let it go back through. Then we're going to go through that stitch that we made proud on the back piece of fabric, okay? So we've gone through both. So now you should have 3 loops on your hook. The back piece, the front piece, and the little stitch that wants to go back through. So yarn round hook, pull it back through the loop on the back piece, back through the loop on the front piece, and back through the stitch that was on the hook. That's the complicated bit, the rest of it's easy. But it has joined our 2 pieces together. So now, working in the back loop again, we're going to go through the back loop of the next stitch, through the next stitch on the back piece. We're going to grab our yarn round hook, pull it back through both of those and back through the one on the hook. We're going to do it again. Back loop only, hook through the back loop, hook through the loop on the back piece of fabric, yarn round hook, through the back piece, through the front piece, and through the loop on the hook. So we're going to do that again. Back loop only, through the stitch on the back piece of fabric, yarn round hook, back through the back piece, back through the front piece, through the stitch on the hook. Back loop only, back piece of fabric, yarn round hook, through the back piece, through the front piece, through the stitch on the hook. Back loop only, stitch on the back piece, round the hook, back through the back piece, back through the front piece, through the stitch on the hook, and you're done. Next one, back loop only, through the back piece, yarn round hook, back through the back piece, through the front piece, through the stitch, and then one more. Now this is where we began. Here's our working yarn. Here's our tail, sorry. Here's our tail. And if you just slide it slightly, you can see the tail joins here. So that's our loop. So we're going through the back of there. It can be a little bit tight. There we go. Yarn round hook, back through the back piece, back through the front piece, through the loop on the hook, and then you'll have your loop that's on your hook, the working yarn and the tail all coming from very close together. What we're going to do, we're going to hold the tail and the working yarn together, and we're going to yarn round hook and pull through that last loop. That's just to finish it off. Then I pull it through until my tail is the same length, and then I'm going to snip it just there. And now my tail and my working yarn are the same length, and I'll pull this one out. Okay, so when we look at it like this, we've now got our tail and our working yarn coming from the same loop, and what we've done is we've made this look like one of the other ridges. We're going to take our yarn needle, going to thread one of these. We're going to take the yarn and we're just going to weave it in and out through these stitches. So what I like to do is I like to have a look at the top here. If I was to go back through there, I would be undoing my last stitch. So I like to go to the other side of it and between the stitches, there we go, pull it through. That way it secures it from going back through this loop by mistake. Then I'm just going to weave it in and out a little bit. So through these ones, through these ones, and don't pull it too tight, otherwise you will make this go smaller. So through these ones, through these ones, pretty much anywhere you want to go really. Don't forget this will be at the back of your head, so it's not like it's going to be prominent at the front. And then what I like to do is go back the other way. So around a different stitch. If I went back through the hole, I'd be undoing what I just did. So around a different stitch, through these ones maybe. Again, don't pull it too tight. Back through these. Ooh. And then give it a little stretch so that I know that that's not going to go tight and change the shape of it. And then I will cut this very close. Like that. Then I'll do the same with the other tail and it will be finished.